Story time about how my boyfriend almost ruined my relationship with my sister. So a little background information. I was 16 and I was a sophomore in high school at the time. Well, we're gonna call my boyfriend Alex. And whenever Alex and I first started dating, I would literally brag to all my friends about how nice he was, about how he treated me so good. Well, fast forward a few months, him and I were still dating. And originally my sister scared him. But eventually he had been around long enough to the point where they were super cool. Well, after that, I started realizing some off things. For example, the one night he was texting me, and all of a sudden he just stopped responding. And I knew that he didn't fall asleep because he was still texting my sister. Well, that should have been the first red flag, but as we know, I am blind to seeing red flags. Anyways, I didn't want to seem jealous of my sister, so I just decided to play it cool and act normal. But him, on the other hand, like for part 2, of how my boyfriend almost ruined my relationship with my sister. So like I said, I decided to act normal and not be jealous. But him, on the other hand, he started finding reasons for him not to like me, and he was ignoring me. Like, he was just being very standoffish. So the one day, my sister decides to leave her phone open on the couch when she goes to the bathroom, and I had this fantastic idea to go through her phone. Rightfully so, like, sis, don't be texting my man more than me. That's weird. Well, when I looked, there was nothing. He was just being super nice to her. And with me, on the other hand, his texts were super dry. By the way, my sister and I are twins. But she starts laughing at her phone, and I'm like, what did he say? And they were just typing random letters to each other. She has a better sense of humor than that, so I knew something was off whenever she was laughing at it. And then she says, I have something to tell you, but you have to promise me you won't get mad. And then she tells me that he said that he likes her. Well, after being mad at her for a while, I realized it was his fault.
I'm going to be telling y'all how my ex had smashed my sister trying to get revenge on me and ended up catching the STD. So basically, right, my ex-boyfriend had broke up with me for no reason at all, right? And then when he came back, he was like, give me another chance. I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. I was just like, I don't want to be with you anymore. Like, I found my self-worth. I just don't want to be in a relationship. I don't want to be with you. And then he was like, bet, you're going to regret that. You're going to regret that. Watch. And I'm like, okay. So then we was on it. He called me. He FaceTimed me. And I was like, what's up? He was like, I'm about to send you something. I was like, all right. He sent me a video of him smashing my sister with no condom. So I was like, what did you just send me? And then he was like, yeah, I smashed your sister, and I enjoyed every second of it. And I started bagging up on the phone. Like, when I tell you, I was laughing so hard. And he was like, what's funny? Why are you laughing? Why aren't you mad? Like, what's funny? What's really funny? Like, I don't understand what you're laughing for. I don't catch the joke. And I'm like, oh, I catch the joke, all right. He was like, what you're laughing for? I don't catch the joke. And I'm like, oh, I catch the joke, all right. He was like, yeah. Anyways, like I said, I enjoyed every second of it. I said, you're going to enjoy burning too, because listen. He was like, what are you talking about? I was like, so I see in this video you don't have nothing on, like protection. So like, did she initiate that you guys should go raw? And then he was like, yup, sure did. And it felt real good. And I'm like, yeah. And you know what else is about to feel good? You burning. Yeah. So I was like, she didn't tell y'all before y'all did what she did, that she had something. She didn't disclose that information before suggesting herself that you guys should do something without a condom. He was like, huh? She ain't got nothing. She would have told me. And I'm like, and deeper in the back of my mind, it's kind of like, I think she knew what she was doing. But at the same time, why would you feel comfortable doing something with my boyfriend? Mind you, I don't like my sister at all. We haven't talked in a long time. But it's kind of like, she kind of knew. It's kind of like she was on my side, but she wasn't on my side. At the same time, you get what I'm saying? So he's like, if I got something, I swear I'm coming after both of y'all. I'm like, I didn't. He's like, if I got something, I swear I'm coming after both of y'all. I'm like, I didn't tell you to do what you did. You did that. He was like, I'm going to take her to court, and yeah. And I'm like, that's between y'all. I really don't care. I could care less. So then he got mad. He hung up. Then his results came back that he had it or whatever. And he was just real mad and salty. My thing is, I don't understand why you were trying to be petty. You ended up hurting yourself at the end of the day. You look stupid. You look like a goofy. And, it's just kind of like, I laughed more than I felt hurt.
So story time. So basically one time in 5th grade, my dad took me to get breakfast from Dunkin' Donuts. We went there before school like always. And as we were there, this strange man outside was staring at me and making faces. Super creepy. We didn't know him or anything, so we walked inside and I was kind of freaked out. I told my dad that I was creeped out by him, and he told me that nothing bad was going to happen. Or so he thought. So we got our foods and we ate it. Everything was fine, chill. After we were done, we got up to leave. The man was gone by now, so I felt better and But then on the way to my school, I saw him walking on the sidewalk. Like, I figured he was going to his house or like somewhere else. When we got to my school, no one was outside. It was kind of weird. We went to open the door because my dad was a part of the PTA, so he came in with me. The door for some reason was locked. My music teacher out of nowhere ran out and brought us inside quickly. She told us that our whole school was on code red. Scary. And that a man was in our school, so we went inside and I went and hid in the music room. Like for part 2. So I went and hid in the music room. Dad was in the PTA room, which was close by. Literally started crying because I was so scared and they weren't telling us anything because we were too young. I guess they didn't want to scare us. That didn't work. Once the code red was over, about 30 minutes later, we went to class. I went to go find my dad and make sure he was okay and see if he knew anything, and he didn't. When I got in my classroom, we were all talking about it, and my teacher said that the man just walked in and told them he was looking for one of his teachers from like 15 years back. Huh? They gave us a description of the man, and I realized it was the same man from Dunkin' Donuts. He just walked in my school. I was freaked out because I saw him at Dunkin' Donuts before school started, and I hoped I never saw him again. But a few weeks later, I saw him again multiple times at the same Dunkin' Donuts. He literally just stared at me all the time.
Okay, so a few years ago, there was this guy who lived about 40 minutes away from me. He was my boyfriend at the time, and he was going to be the first boy to ever meet my parents, but he wasn't a good kid. So literally the day before he was supposed to meet my parents, he ended up breaking up with me and then he went to some party afterwards. So he messed around and then about a week after that, he came back telling me that he missed me, so I took him back not thinking anything of it until he started acting weird. He would always tell me that he was busy, but then he would sneak out with his homeboys. So then right before my quince, his homeboy ended up telling me that my boyfriend got another girl pregnant. So obviously I confronted him about it and he was like, yeah, it was an accident and I didn't mean to. And I was just like, what the hell? So to be petty, I ended up inviting his homeboy to my quince and he was so nice and he talked to all of my family members and even filled in to be my partner. Fast forward 3 years and my ex's homeboy is now my boyfriend. We just had our second gender reveal and we have one son and a baby girl on the way. And as for my ex, let's just say he wasn't so happy once he heard the news.
Storytime on how/why I slept 3 feet away from my dead neighbor for 6 to 8 weeks during quarantine. Just giving a trigger warning, this story is kind of gross. It was May of 2020 and the pandemic was definitely hitting a peak. Everyone had been at home at this point for the past 2 months and everyone was kind of going crazy, including myself. I lived alone at the time in a 250 square foot studio apartment that was very small in Los Angeles in the Valley. To give perspective for the rest of the story, my building is kind of like an old motel style, so all of our doors open outside, and the building is a rectangle with my door being the only one on the end of the rectangle and 2 doors on either side of me. It was around the middle of May and I started to call my mom and tell her that I wasn't really feeling like myself. And what I meant by that was that I was having headaches, I wasn't really sleeping through the night, I was feeling nauseous a lot, and honestly, we all kind of wrote it off as me just feeling a little lonely and going a little crazy during quarantine, just like everyone else was. It was really unlike me to not be able to sleep through the night, so I thought this was really strange, but again, I just kind of wrote it off because I just thought I was really sad and depressed. Throughout the month of May, I noticed that I had an uptick in the amount of bugs in my apartment. Part 2 of how/why I slept 3 feet away from my dead neighbor for 6 to 8 weeks during quarantine. I'm going to give another trigger warning for just grossness overall. Okay, so where we left off was the end of May, and this was the peak of the pandemic, as I mentioned, and this was around the time of George Floyd, which, if you know, in Los Angeles was a very crazy time. There was tanks on the street outside my apartment. It was very hectic, and honestly, me complaining about a smell and some spiders was the last of anyone's concerns, especially the police. I had already called the police once, and they had told me that within 48 hours, if nothing had been done or my manager didn't get involved, then I can call them again and they would escalate the situation. But honestly, it was the last of anyone's concerns. So my manager was quite upset with me for harassing my one neighbor, but I had told her she needed to get involved, and honestly, she wasn't really having it. She agreed to send out our maintenance man to meet me at Wednesday around 3 p.m., but of course, Wednesday at 3 p.m. rolled around and my maintenance man was nowhere to be seen. I decided to give it a couple hours, and sure enough, he showed up, and within minutes of showing up to the building, he had walked up the stairs because I was on the second floor, and remember, our building's a rectangle.
Okay, so I almost got arrested over a little girl who had a crush on me. Here's a little background information about this girl. So I met her while I was streaming my live on Minecraft one day. She and I started a Minecraft world together, and there was nothing strange so far, and all my friends knew about her too. So then fast forward a few weeks later, after me and her are done playing in the Minecraft world, she randomly DMs me, and she tells me that she has something to tell me. So I responded with, sure, what is it? She then proceeds to tell me that she has a crush on me, and she's had a crush on me ever since we first met. And just so you guys know, she was 13 and I was was 19. So I responded and I said, well, I'm dating someone already. After that, she begins to blow me up and she was like, well, that's probably a lie since all you do is play games all day. So then after that, I told her my age. She then threatened to call the cops on me if I didn't date her. And I still kept telling her no. So then fast forward to the beginning of 2020. I'm chilling at my house when some cops showed up at my front door claiming that I've SA'd a kid. That kid being the one that I play Minecraft with. After that, I tried explaining to them that I'm taken by 3 people and they don't include her. So I tried explaining to the police that I was taken by 3 people and those 3 people didn't include the 13-year-old girl, but of course they didn't believe me. So then after many court cases and explanations, she finally decided to tell the truth. She ended up explaining to everyone that she did it because she thought that I really loved her and that I was lying about not wanting her. After the situation was over with, I ended up blocking her on everything. Fast forward a couple of months later, I thought everything was done with. But about 4 weeks ago, she ended up DMing me saying that she wanted to make up with me. And I of course wanted nothing to do with her. She then began to make sly remarks about how my girlfriend is fat and how my boyfriends are ugly and that she would be so much better. I of course was already fed up, so I ended up telling her off and I told her that if she was to ever contact me again, I would press charges for harassment. I didn't before because I felt bad for her, but now it was different. She then told me, if I can't have you, then no one can have you. After that, I lost contact with her and haven't spoken to her since then, and I don't know what she might be up to now.